Hello, welcome everybody to another edition of the Cameroon Town Hall for Healthcare Professionals. It is your town hall, and it is my distinct honor to welcome you all to this forum. This platform has been attended by over 1,000 people across the globe, either in person or over one of our live streaming platforms. So I am really excited today to introduce a very wonderful topic, reversing diabetes type 2 with Dr. Eugene Kongnyuy, whom we have the distinct honor of having today. Dr. Eugene Kongnyuy is also the author of a book called No Pills, No Needles, which I had the distinct honor of securing earlier this week, and really had the honor of reading through it, and really excellent read. I know he's going to probably dive more into the content of the book and some of the wonderful things that's been written in it. So I really wanted to say, Dr. Kongnyuy, it's truly an honor. I had the opportunity to listen in one of your sessions a few weeks ago, I believe with Headlane organization, where you talked a little bit about your personal journey and your personal experience with both conditions, diabetes and high blood pressure. So I just want to say it's such an honor and such a privilege for us to have you here today to present. So before we dive in, I just wanted to take a round to introduce my co-moderators for today. We have Luisa. Luisa, how are you doing?
Very good, Ryan. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Kongnyuy, for coming to share this with us. I think it's a very timely conversation, given that with COVID, everybody was at home. There is high, data is showing that the rate of obesity is increasing. Diabetes is going to shoot out post-COVID. So I think it's really a very timely conversation. Thank you. And it's an honor. We really look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Luisa. How is the weather in Canada today?
I think there's only one thing when you greet someone in Canada, you say it's like, oh, the weather is good. Like that's the whole conversation about it. But today is pretty good. We're excited. Everybody wants to go out. The kids want to jump in puddles. So I think it's exciting.
Thank you so much. Teresia? Teresia, are you with us? Okay, let's move to Alison. I believe Teresa might have maybe a technical challenge. Alison.
Hi, Brian, and hi, everyone, and welcome once more to another edition of the Town Hall. I'm so excited to be able to learn more about what Dr. Kongnyuy is going to be talking about today, and I'm excited to actually get to put an eye on him, even though it's unfortunately virtual, because I've had the chance to read about his work, and this is truly an honor. And to those of you joining us online and here on the Zoom platform, I hope you're well. I hope your families are well.
Awesome. Thanks, Alison. Elvis.
Hi, thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure once again to be on this session. Each time we quit one session, I'm just praying for the next session. It's always the best way to spend a weekend with you, with experts. And we are really excited to have Dr. Kongnyuy today. And Dr. Kongnyuy, one thing you know about the town hall is each time we have a presenter coming up, we do a lot of assignment to read about the person. We even read about the hobbies. We read about what makes you angry. So we know a lot about you than you can imagine. Alison, if we have any challenge, we will tell Alison. And if Alison sits on the computer, she pulls out everything on planet Earth about you. So you can be sure that the moderators already have a lot about you. That's why we are all excited to have you here today. Once I always extend a vote of thanks to our chairperson, Dr. Munoken, for putting this platform together that has so far been existing for almost 2 years now with more than 48 sessions. We've never missed a session. It's always a pleasure to be here. And Brian, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Elvis, and thanks for those very kind words. Before we move on, pass on to the moderators, to the moderator to introduce our key speaker for today, I would like to hand over to our chair, Dr. Monok, former Kenneth, to greet everyone and to formally open the town hall. Over to you, Dr. Former.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Brian, and for all the other moderators. Thank you for your dedication, for your time. I would want to say a special thank you to Dr. Kongnyuy for being a mentor while we were in medical school. So I was a fourth-year medical student and he was the chief resident in OBGYN. So it's a pleasure to know that he motivated a lot of us and he was an example for who a good doctor should be. So I think just being there and observing him gave us a lot of motivation, gave us an idea to also venture into public health and get other things alongside. So I just want to thank you and also thank you for your time and accepting to be part of us today. And just to know that this town hall is really owned by all the Cameroon healthcare professionals, nurses, midwives, doctors, epidemiologists, laboratory scientists, everyone. So we're trying to create a platform that is owned by everyone and everyone should feel free. And if in the future you know of anyone who may have an idea and wants to share something that could change or revolutionize Cameroon, please, this is the platform for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Foreman. Thanks for that greeting. I think we're going to move on to Dr. Foreman. I think you have some updates for updates on what's going on in the pandemic. Initially, when this forum started, we were seeking ways in which to leverage our expertise in different fields, whether it's in clinical medicine or it's in public health or epidemiology or data science, and see how we can help our colleagues in Cameroon transfer knowledge and capacity building and things of that nature. And we've had the opportunity to share much of our experience to help the systems in Africa and also our colleagues in Cameroon as well. So so we are really thrilled to have again Dr. Mono give us some updates on where we are in the pandemic at this stage and the way forward. Over to you, Dr. Foreman.
Oh, thank you, Brian. And you being part of the CDC, I think you'll be able to fill in during the long discussion in the things I missed. So I'm getting a bit not up to date as I used to be. So I know, starting with COVID, it's important for us to know that COVID is not over. As Luisa was just telling us during a short discussion, the ICUs are getting full again. We do have the Omicron BA.1.1. Now we're having BA.2, which is ravaging Europe and Asia, especially China, which we have seen them really been shaded from the pandemic since the original variant. The question we're asking ourselves, why did it take WHO so long to declare that COVID is actually airborne? These are all questions. For those who know me, I've been a very big critic of the CDC, WHO, and the NIH. So looking at the pandemic for us in the US, this is our best time, really, in the pandemic. I think this is the best time we've had. We have the lowest numbers in the ICU. I'm presently in the hospital. I have 0 patient actually with COVID in my hospital. And I'm in New York City, so you can imagine, but the numbers are rising. And we can see here that the number of patients who do have COVID, it's being taken over totally by BA.2. That's still part of the Omicron variant. And looking at the Omicron variant in itself, we could see that the BA.1 and the BA.2 are pretty similar, but the rate of transmission is kind of 30% higher and nearly 2-fold of viral load. But the vaccination still works, and we do know that medication still works. This is just a trend showing you exactly what is happening globally, in Europe, in America, in Asia. Africa is still doing very well with this pandemic, and I think at the end of this, we need to really do a research on why. So we see here that we do have the different strains, and Omicron itself, it's still the BA.2 is just a subvariant. It's not a variant in itself. Looking at the different mutations here, you can track the mutations that did occur, comparing alpha, beta, and getting to delta and the BA.1 and .2. So there is also the identification of BA.4 is not yet a pi because there is also BA.5 that has been identified, and South Africa is doing a good job in sequencing, and the rest of Europe, Canada, and the US. So here you can see that there are also hybrid mutants that are occurring and have been documented. It's just for you to know that these things exist and that we're tracking them. Now you can see, I will take, for example, the cities where I stay in. I got this from the national data. You see New York is planning to trend up. the number of new cases are starting to go up, but we are not seeing the kind of rise we saw with the original Omicron BA.1. So here you see New York and Massachusetts. This is China. So China was shaded from the virus for a long time since the original Wuhan variant came out, but now they're having a lot of cases. And there is some data analysis trying to figure out why, and the number of deaths too are excessively high. So a lot of those who are 80 years and above in China are not vaccinated, they're unvaccinated. And there is also an issue with the kind of vaccine that was used. You see the whole of, you get China, Korea, New Zealand, Vietnam, Japan, the number of cases have gone up. And also they have had relatively higher death rates due to Omicron compared to the rest of the world. We could spend a whole session trying to figure out why. And I think I'm going to invite my friend Boguma one day to tell me why. Now we can see here that in Hong Kong, 7 out of every death were unvaccinated patients. So vaccines are still important, especially in Africa. I'm going to show you the data in Cameroon. And the CDC and others are trying to use sewage disposal in order for us to trace this pandemic and be able to identify new variants. So this is actually the post-testing era, and we're going to try to survey for surveillance. I think the WHO is working on other modalities to survey. Now, in the future, we're going to need a lot of money in order to be able to fight pandemics. You can see here how much this is pre-COVID, and now this is post-COVID, how much money has been dedicated by Europe and America and the Asians. We need a lot more to be able to trace these pandemics and fight them in the future. Each time we feel we're getting to the finish line, I think someone is running away. The virus is running away with the finish line and we're not getting there. We need a Swiss cheese kind of model in order for us to really fight this pandemic. Nothing is going to work alone. We do need to put all of these measures in place. I think I've talked about this several times, and these measures should be put in together in order for us to really go through this pandemic. These are the different strategies that have been used. Some of them were not effective. We are now in the era of therapeutics, and I think we're going to get a lot of new therapeutics in this year coming forward. I don't know exactly where at the end of the road, a lot of people are demasking themselves. Where do we go from here? This is still the data worldwide. If someone had told anyone seated here, I can remember I told one of my ID physicians that this is a pandemic coming up and he refused. There have been almost 500 million people infected. This is an underestimation by almost, this is 1/3 the number of people who actually got it. We've actually vaccinated 11 billion doses. No vaccine has ever been given this way, and people are still doubting the efficacy and doubting that we don't know exactly what we're doing. So I find this very, very interesting that data can be out there, but still you have scientists doubting. Worldwide, as I said, we have almost 1 billion, 500 million people have been infected, documented. We have almost had 6 million people have died of COVID, which is not something that had to happen. And back in Cameroon, the numbers compared to a month ago, the numbers have been very small. They have just been documented 300 new cases compared to last month. And the number of deaths in Cameroon still stay low. But I know a lot of people who have died myself. Now there is something new. I could not go without talking about cholera in Cameroon. We need to know that the cholera pandemic is occurring in the southwest and the littoral region. And all those who are in Cameroon should take note. We have had, as of April 5th, there were over 4,500 cases of cholera in Cameroon. And you have also had a certain number of deaths, almost 105 deaths. Now there are about 150 deaths that have occurred, mostly in the southwest and in the littoral region. There is vaccination going on. The vaccination campaign started yesterday. So those who are in the southwest, please get yourself vaccinated. And also hygiene and sanitation is very important. And we'll try in one of the sessions to bring someone from these regions to talk about this and see exactly how we can mitigate this in the future. The US has been the champion of COVID. Number of cases, number of deaths is sad, but it's a very shameful thing. And we see that the pandemic actually helped us to develop vaccines in the shortest time possible, ever. So how many vaccines have been given? 11.3 million vaccines. Cameroon has vaccines. The question is people are not ready to take it. We have given just 1.5 million doses of vaccines. We have vaccinated only 5.9 people out of 100 people. This is very shameful. And it's showing us the pandemic is not over. If this comes back, we're going to be the ones who will be susceptible, because we do know that COVID vaccines work, and those who have had COVID also develop herd immunity. There's hybrid immunity that we know about. Low-income countries are still being discriminated in terms of availability of vaccines. We know that the virus is very complex, and how do we go from here? How do you develop a universal vaccine? And here you can see that these are the different waves that we have had, with each wave being coupled with deaths. The number of deaths was equal to the number of cases. They were all moving in the same line, except the last wave when the people were vaccinated. You saw the number of cases in yellow compared to the number of deaths did not correlate. So you can see here that vaccines do work, and we reduce the number of people who could die from COVID. Now getting 2 doses helps, but getting 3 doses actually, 2 doses with a booster actually reduce your chances of dying from COVID. The data is out there. This is some of the data for those of you who are interested. I could share this with you. Now the 4th dose becomes a controversy. Africa is still struggling to get people get the 1st dose. Now we're already giving the 4th dose. This is a whole discussion about equity, availability, and also there's an issue of vaccine hesitancy in Africa that we need to deal with. And the 4th dose is actually recommended in Europe for people above 60 years old, and Israel is giving it to everyone. So this is really something that is going to lead to discussion about equity in health care. You can see data from Switzerland, the US actually showed that even the 3rd dose or the booster dose actually reduced mortality among all age groups. This is just the same data I presented in different forms comparing vaccinated and unvaccinated people. And here, those who benefited more were those who are above 65 years. And it's important to know that this vaccine is approved, but the question is which of them do we have back at home and which can we scale up in Africa? This has been the most interesting time for science. Man has actually achieved, we'll look back to this and say we achieved something in a year, we could get a vaccine in place, just that we had a lot of skeptics who could not believe in it or who did not believe in it. And a lot of people died out of simply us scientists not being able to communicate what we are doing. And now we are able to actually fast track clinical trials, get them done, even get variant-specific vaccines, which are being tried. Now, what is the next variant to come? Is it going to end here? No. We're going to see that Omicron was here, other things are coming. Is it going to be called Pi? Will it be called Rho? Will it be called Stigma? Depends on WHO, those who are there. Are we still going to lock ourselves up? If it comes from Africa, are we going to still do the same thing, the same disgraceful, shameful thing? South Africa was having a good epidemiological surveillance, and they were actually discriminated against, some form of racism. Now, will Africa be ready? If they are given these vaccines, do they have enough cold chain to store them? How far are we going with a universal vaccine? So the US was working on a universal vaccine in the water reed, and I think it was already a phase 2 trial. Now, where do we go in terms of therapeutics? Therapeutics have been quite slow compared to the others. We do have 2 oral medications right now, Monopiravir and Paxlovid, but they are not available in Africa. And this becomes a problem because even if we have patients, this can reduce mortality almost by 90%, especially the Paxlovid. And what are the other treatments we have in place? I talked about the antivirals that are used for early disease. And also we'll talk about remdesivir, which has not been approved in Europe, but is available in the US and also now reduces mortality in asymptomatic patients. Corticosteroids are available in Africa. I think that's the only thing which is available for us is the dexamethasone because it's cheap. The interleukin-6 inhibitor, tocilizumab, is a very expensive drug, not available. The JAK2 inhibitors, the baricitinib, is not available. And we still do have clinical trials we're waiting on for colchicine and others. These are all things that we're thinking about. And I think we're at the space where we do have monoclonal antibodies. We don't have them available back home. Still, the pharmaceutical companies are not making them available in Africa. So we're still in a point where if we get sick in Africa, get severe COVID, there's going to be a problem. And this is just about access. And we need to know that we need to collect data at this time in order to justify our actions. Don't forget that all these measures, physical distancing, wearing masks, hand washing, avoiding touching areas, increased crowds, especially if the numbers are increasing. The last thing I want to scare you guys is I know everyone talks about the vaccine reducing fertility, but COVID does reduce fertility. The vaccine does not. This is new data coming out. This just came out yesterday, was published. And in the New England Journal of Medicine, there are other data out there really talking about long COVID, which I didn't talk about this. And a lot of people are being affected with long COVID, and we're going to know the consequences later. So Brian, I'm sorry that I took about 10 minutes of your time so you can start the session.
No, I think that was really enlightening, and that was really important. I think one of the things that we greatly underestimate is, because we talk a lot about COVID-19 causing mild disease, particularly in younger people. But one thing we fail to consider is the reality of long COVID. So actually living and going through hell. I was reading about some statistics about people living with still having persistent cough and having to deal with this lingering symptoms for a long period of time. So it's really a huge call for people to get vaccinated and to get their booster shot. I have a T-shirt here that says Booster Club, so I highly recommend people to get their booster shots. And one of the things that's still in line with what we are talking about is that I wasn't part of the study, but there was a CDC study that was done that showed that there has been an increase in the incidence of diabetes type, I think it's diabetes type 1, and I hope Dr. Eugene might get into this as well, but there's been an increased incidence of people having diabetes type 1 over the course of the pandemic. So it will really be interesting to see how that goes forward. But Dr. Mono, one thing I wanted to ask you was about the future. How comfortable are you in declaring this an endemic condition? What would convince you that are we in the endemic stage yet, or what's your perspective on the future of the pandemic from where we are today?
Yeah, I think I strongly believe some places in the world will be in an endemic phase. Other places will still get to have really pandemic-like kind of trends, just because the number of herd immunity they have in the population is still very low. And you can see that in China. And also the amount of people who are vaccinated are still very low. So Africa is really one of those areas where the amount of people who are vaccinated is pretty low. And the amount of people who have actually had COVID in itself. You could argue that SARS-CoV-2 virus could have been circulating in Africa, but this number is still very low. And I think this is going to persist for a long time. That's my take. I'm not an expert in any of these fields. You know that. I'm an internist, a hematologist, and oncologist. I'm just passionate about COVID. But I do believe strongly that in the US and in some places in Europe, depending on the variants that we have, because there is a lot of herd immunity, there's a lot of hybrid immunity. People will get infected with COVID and different variants, but they will not get very sick. So it's going to really become an endemic kind of something looking like the cold in the next 1 or 2 years. That's my take, but I may be wrong. A lot of people have been wrong about this pandemic from the start, even big scientists. So it's one of those things that has humbled everyone. So.
Yeah, I have been working with colleagues within the Africa CDC to enhance genomic surveillance, so that in case we find another variant that pops up or circulating within the community, we will be able to pick that up. And one of the things the CDC is emphasizing on today is wastewater surveillance. So we're trying to see how we can sample specimens from sewage facilities that serve specific communities to find if we can find genetic fingerprints of specific variants, and see how we can use that to monitor for emerging variants and probably be able to control the pandemic moving forward. Thanks a lot, Dr. Mono, for those updates on COVID. It's always a pleasure to hear you talk about where we are in the pandemic. Thank you so much. So I would like to pass it over to Luisa Vivan to introduce our key speaker for today. Dr. Luisa Vivan, over to you.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you so much, Dr. Mono. It's really always, I think this is where we come to when it comes to having updates on what's going on in the world of COVID. But without further ado, I think I am really humbled and privileged to be introducing Dr. Eugene Kongnyuy, who is, he's just given us a snippet of who he is actually, because if we have to start talking about what he really is, who he is, what he has done in his life, it takes us the whole or half of the town hall. So today, our presenter will be Dr. Eugene Kongnyuy. He is currently the resident representative of the United Nations Population Fund, which is in for short is UNFPA. So if you hear me say UNFPA, it is resident of the United Nations Population Fund. And currently he is the resident representative of the Republic of Congo. Before he was in Congo, he was the representative in Mali. And so far, he's worked for the UNFPA in several countries in different capacities, countries like Nigeria, Haiti, and Madagascar. But before he joined the UNFPA, Dr. Kongnyuy was a clinical lecturer in sexual and reproductive health in the University of Liverpool in the UK, where he led many maternal health teams. He also is very much involved in research, and his works have been translated into global and national policies on sexual and reproductive health. He equally has provided technical assistance to governments in several countries across Europe, Middle East, Asia, and Africa. If you were here from the beginning, you would have heard Dr. Muno say he knows him way back from school. So he did study medicine in the University of Yaoundé 1 in Cameroon. He is a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, and he has a PhD in public health from Staffordshire Universities. Excuse me, I'm not from the UK, but I think it's Staffordshire University, and a Master's of Public Health from Hebrew University in Israel. He also has a Master's in Business Administration from the University of the People. So you can see from his profile that there is so much to talk about him. He's also a professor of global health at Euclid University, where he teaches on a part-time basis. He has several research publications in peer-reviewed journals and has published already 5 books. One of his most recent books, if you were here from the very beginning, you'd have seen Brian show it up, is the No Pills, No Needles, How to Reverse Diabetes and Hypertension and Finding Out What Works for You. This book is a snippet of what he has done personally, and he's going to probably talk a little bit about it and how he successfully reversed diabetes and hypertension. If you look in the chat, you see that Alison, who always knows how to dig things deep, has already shared the link on how you can get that book off Amazon. So without further ado, Dr. Kongnyuy, thank you so much for coming to share your expertise with us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lisa Viban, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. It's a pleasure to be invited to this forum, and in fact, I'm humbled about the quality of the presentation that Mono just gave and the quality of people that are in the forum. I'm also humbled by the presentation that you have given me. I started wondering whether I was the one. So thank you so much. So when I discussed with Dr. Mono, I told him that I would talk about how I reverse diabetes. And I feel that it is not a presentation, it is a story. So I focus on telling my own story. And as you can hear from my presentation, from what Dr. Lisa presented about me, I'm not an endocrinologist. So it's so strange that I'm here talking about diabetes, which is not really my field. So it's by accident that I happen to be in this field. So, but I got into it as a patient, first of all. So I'm approaching it from the patient perspective, my experience. So it all started some 12 years ago, when during the normal annual health check, I was found to have diabetes, and that was in the UK. And at that moment, it was with my GP. He advised me on dieting. My weight was 80 at that time. Body mass index was 26.1. So there was no, he didn't talk about weight loss, but he talked about exercise, and that was it. I tried it for 3 months, but nothing worked. So I was put on metformin, and I took metformin. while taking metformin, I started asking myself, why is it that diabetes type 2, which is caused by lifestyle, is not reversible? Is there a reason that if you change your lifestyle, you will not be able to reverse something that came because of lifestyle? Then I said, oh my God, I'm going to try. So I decided I would try. What I was trying was basically some changes in lifestyle, whether it involved diet, involved exercise, I will Google and see what people have written about things that work for diabetes. And then I will try it. And when I take one thing, I will try for 1 month. And then if it doesn't work, I will drop it and try another one. On the average, everything I was trying was taking about 4 weeks. And I was trying, I keep trying and changing. Nothing was working. I was still taking my metformin. I would be trying to see whether it was something really sure that it has an impact, even with metformin, that could say it's working. I didn't find anything. I did that for 2 years. And I tried 30 different things, and none worked. I felt so frustrated. And I remember in medical school, we are taught that diabetes was a chronic illness. It is something that when you have it, is for life. There was no way, we are not taught that you reverse diabetes. Was not what I was taught. And so I knew that it was difficult. I said, but this looked like a strange thing. And one day I decided that I will stop eating lunch. And the lunch was actually my main meal, because it constituted 40 to 50% of what I was eating and in my normal calorie intake. And I just say I will not take lunch anymore. I will eat my breakfast, and then I will eat dinner. And then, but it was more to me than just eating, because lunch to me was also having fun with friends, was merrymaking, was socialization, was a moment that you really met colleagues and discussed and all that. So it was about missing all these things. And I told myself, well, what I'm going to do is I will still go to the restaurant with friends and we can keep talking. I will drink water. I'll not take any snack or anything. I will just do that. But the first week was quite difficult. I can bet with you. It was not easy because I felt really hungry. But I said, I'm not going to eat. I had a very strong willpower. I said, I'm not going to eat, I'm going to stay. But after one week, then I discovered that it wasn't that much difficult anymore. It became quite easy. I wasn't feeling hungry. I started feeling, by lunchtime, I would not be feeling hungry. I would just start feeling hungry by 6 p.m. the evening. So then 2 to 3 months, I've lost 10 kilos. So I dropped from 80 to 70 kilos, and my body mass index dropped from 26.1 to 22.8. Okay. As it was dropping, I was sensing that the blood sugar was really going down, and I could see it because I was testing every time. At least once a day I was testing. I was seeing that there was, by the time I lost 10 kilos, I was feeling that my blood sugar was quite down and that it could stay. So I decided that I was going to stop metformin and see what will happen. I just stopped metformin, taking my blood sugar the morning, the evening, and then they stayed normal. So I said, I'm not going to see my GP for 3 months because I know I will go, he will ask for a glycated hemoglobin. I need to give 3 months span for it to get normal. I said, I'm not going to see the GP. I will stay until 3 months without taking metformin and just without eating at lunchtime. So I stayed. After 3 months, I went and saw my GP. I told my GP I've stopped. I think my blood sugar is normal now. I've stopped metformin for 3 months. He did all the tests, including the glycated hemoglobin, and everything looks normal. Then he stopped the metformin. So at that moment, then I continue with the same process of not eating at lunchtime. Then over time, I have learned a lot about that. It's because it's 12 years ago. And I learned a lot about what was happening. I wrote a book that was, I started writing the book in 2020. It was when COVID started. And then I discovered that those who had diabetes, they're having a lot of problems. I'm not that an outgoing person who will just rush and writing about himself. I wasn't wanting to write about myself and telling my story everywhere. I didn't want to do it. But when I saw COVID, I said, well, maybe it can help someone. Maybe if I write this one, it took me time to convince myself that I should write about a book about myself. So, but I plucked the courage and then I wrote it. So I sent it to Hammersmith Books. They have a publisher in the UK, and they published it. In fact, they're the #1 health publisher in the UK. I sent it there. When they saw it, they were excited. They published it. So it came out last year. So over time, I've learned a couple of lessons about this, because and I will summarize it into seven main lessons that I've learned about reversing diabetes over time. And I would just like to summarize it that way, so that you keep summary. The details are in the book. I've written much about the details, but the summary. The first lesson that I learned was about weight loss. I'm still finally convinced that the way to reverse diabetes is you have to lose some weight. In fact, when I lost 10 kilos and the diabetes went away, then I was reading an article, and then I saw that there was a publication from the UK scientists who showed that their patients, when they lost 10 to 15 kilos, most of them reverse diabetes. So there's something in there about weight loss which is very, very important. And I think that because diabetes is actually part of a cluster of diseases called the metabolic syndrome, and it is believed to be caused by fats. But in fact, fats do not come from just eating fat, they come from eating anything that is finally stored as fats. But then when you have the fatty acids, fats are circulated in the blood as free fatty acids. But when there are too many free fatty acids moving around and overwhelming the body, normal reaction of the body for the immune system is to release the cytokines, because they are there to fight. They are like I call them, in the book, I call them the riot police, because they are the police, unlike the antibodies which fight viruses and bacteria that are outside. They are fighting things that are inside. They are like the body police. So they will try to fight the free fatty acids. But then they cannot succeed because you keep eating and there is a lot of fat moving around the body. Whether you are eating but carbs and they are converted to fats, and all like fats are moving around the body. And then they stayed for long. Imagine riot police staying in your streets for a very long time. They will cause more havoc than really benefits. And that is the combinations of those free fatty acids and cytokines is what will cause now lead to diabetes, high blood pressure, will lead to high cholesterol and other issues, clustering of diseases around metabolic syndrome. But the presence of high amount of calories, both carbs and fats in the body, directly impact the insulin sensitivity. They damage the cells and damage the insulin sensitivity. And in fact, if the pancreatic beta cells, when they keep on secreting insulin because they believe that you need more insulin for you to bring down your sugar level. In the end result, they are damaged because they get overworked. But also obesity itself causes inflammation. It's part of the reaction to cytokines. And so overwhelming amount of cytokines fighting, they create inflammation, which also damages the receptors, the insulin receptors, and all those types of things make insulin resistance associated with obesity, and that we end up having more. You end up having a state where you have more insulin in the body. It's not lack of insulin, but then the insulin is not working, doing the work it's supposed to do because of the damages caused by the cytokines and the free fatty acids, and then you develop insulin resistance, and that is what will lead to diabetes and stay there. So the weight loss is central. I will say in my book that if you want to reverse diabetes, then you need to work hard on your weight. The weight is key. I don't believe right up to now, from my experience, that there is any other single thing that you can do to reverse diabetes without losing your weight. Type 2 specifically. I don't believe that such a thing exists. It may, but I don't believe. And this is particularly very important because we as doctors, we tell our patients many things. Like I was told exercise. I wasn't even told weight loss because my weight was just slightly above the normal body. I was told a diet, don't eat red meat, don't eat fat, don't eat. We tell patients thousands of things to do. But then what is the single most important thing? I think knowing that single most important thing is very important, because if I were told that the single most important thing for you to do to reverse diabetes is to reduce your weight significantly, that would have changed everything. And I believe that in the course of time, we need more data that will help us change our clinical guidelines, clinical protocols, to be able to really tell patient what is the most important, instead of telling 5, 10 things that the patient need to do, which the patient will do each of them partially, but then he doesn't focus, he or she doesn't focus on the most important thing that really matter. And if I had somebody having diabetes now, I would tell him or her, the most important thing for you is to lose weight. And that is it, you have to lose weight. Weight loss is key. That was the first lesson. I talk about 7 lessons. The second lesson was before, which I found is about overweight. Okay, you all know that in terms of body mass index, the normal weight is when the body mass index is be from 18.5 to 24.9, and then 25 to 29.9 is overweight. 30 and above is obesity. Now what happened is, in all environment that I've worked with, I've been to, I see that most of the people I see, more than 50% of the people, are either obese or overweight. They have that body mass index. So over time, what happened is, I started telling myself that overweight was normal. I questioned seriously why scientists will be claiming that if somebody's body mass index is between 25 and the 39.9 is overweight and is not good. So I questioned that, because I started saying, if everybody was overweight or obese, what is the classification? How important is that classification? Is it not a wrong classification to put everybody as overweight or obese? Shouldn't we revise that classification to really reflect the reality? That was the question I had until I had diabetes. that really realized that being overweight, you could have diabetes, and that there was a reason behind that classification, and that it makes sense. But unfortunately, it is not everybody. There are people who are not predisposed to having diabetes, so they will be overweight or obese, they wouldn't have anything. But those who are predisposed, if you are overweight, you will have diabetes. So that's what the difficulties of knowing who is predisposed and who is not predisposed, and then some people being that way, they are normal, some do not have, and all that. So from what I had, having diabetes at body mass index of 26.1, and then I realized that there was a reason why we should not be overweight. And it is very important at this time because if you look over the internet, you will find that there are groups of people who are sending out messages that to normalize obesity and say, no, this is normal. And I understand them because sometimes it is stigma, which they shouldn't, people who are overweight, obese shouldn't be stigmatized, but we shouldn't consider that that is normal. We shouldn't consider that that is really normal because it is not normal. It is a problem because it exposes you to something that is serious, and it is a cause of what we are seeing as the rising pandemic of diabetes, high blood pressure, and all the like. The metabolic syndrome itself is around there. So it's around all those diseases that form that cluster. So, the second lesson I learned was that being overweight was a problem. Contrary to what I thought, I convinced myself that it was really a problem, that I should be very, very careful. The third lesson, which I also like to talk about, is I started asking myself, what was then the normal way? Because I knew for myself that having a body mass index of 24, I will still have had diabetes. So it was not enough. So it doesn't mean, I was telling myself that normal body mass index is not enough. There's something wrong, but we don't know, where is the cutting point? Where is the threshold around things? Where is the cutoff around there? I didn't have the answer. And when I wrote the book, I was quite open about it. I don't have the answer, but something is telling me that normal body mass index is not enough. Some people will still have normal body mass index and will have diabetes, but I don't know that cutting point. I know that I reduced from 26.1 to 22.3, and then it disappeared. But I knew that if I reduce from 26 to 24, I will still have diabetes, and 24 is normal. So something was telling me that, look, we need some research in this area to figure out what is the cutoff. Fortunately, a couple of months down after I published the No Pills, No Needles, then the Lancet came out with the famous publication of 685,000 participants, over 685,000 participants in 57 countries, most of them middle and low income countries. They tried to analyze the body mass index and see diabetes and all that. And their conclusion was clear. If you have a body mass index of 23 and above, your risk of diabetes increases significantly. If you have a body mass index of 23 and above, it increases significantly. That was really, it was really exciting to me because it just, first of all, was consistent with my findings about myself, because I just dropped below 23 and it validated what I found. And above all, it gave me an idea where that cutoff is, because I didn't know. Because I couldn't say, well, now I tell everybody that you need to reduce your weight to 22.8. Doesn't make sense because I'm just the one person. I was the one researcher and I was the one patient myself. And so it was not that very solid evidence, but I know that there was something behind it. So it is now very clear that those who are predisposed to having diabetes, you need to work on your weight loss and aim to reduce our weight loss to have a body mass index, BMI of less than 23. There's now emerging evidence. And it is that area where guidelines, I don't think there is any country that has adopted that guidelines, but I believe that it is something we need to do so that fast, because it is good to tell patients that now you have type 2 diabetes. If you drop your body mass index to below 23, it will go away. And you will see that many people will be motivated to do so. Is not to start telling people that passing that message. And probably we will need, many countries will still want data from their own countries. They will still want to validate and all that. That will take years down. But as years are going, we're losing people. It's something that I really urge scientists. I really urge the agencies responsible for guidelines to really put money into it and accelerate, because the longer we wait and not passing the right message as doctors, the more harm we are doing to people who are suffering. And we are losing more people because we are not passing the right message. We're not passing the evidence down. So that's the third lesson I learned from that. Now, one of the things that I also found was about exercise. I estimate that exercise also contributed to my weight loss, but not as much, to my reversal of diabetes, but not as much as the weight loss. So in summary, I estimate that exercise contributed maybe 20%, but that the rest was 80%. But I believe that the main is the weight loss, that even if you lose the weight significantly, you can still reverse diabetes with minimal exercise, just normal. You will not. And exercise to me, I see it as complementary. It helps remove the blood sugar immediately, because when you are doing exercise, the first thing is that you burn down the sugar in your blood, and the second thing is that you remove the glycogen, and the glycogen is stored. The glycogen store is limited, maximum 600 grams of glycogen are stored in the body, but any other after that, it is now fat. Fat is unlimited store. So when you eat more than what what your body requires, the immediate store is glycogen, which is 600 grams, and then the rest is stored as fat. And that's why people, for decades, we have been talking about fats being bad and all that, but not realizing that it is in fact everything that you eat that will really be stored as fat. It's not that you are eating fats or we are eating fat. We are eating things excessively and all converted to fat, and we're having problems. So exercise, if you exercise, what I realized that for you to really exercise to lose weight, exercise may help lose weight, but often it is small to moderate. For you to really lose weight with exercise, it has to be intensive. And I know people who have tried, who do about 2.5 hours of exercise every day, and they have successfully lost weight with that. But that's not something that many people will be able to do it. So doing exercise that you are going to lose weight is quite very difficult. Diet is much more easier than exercise to lose weight. So exercise will contribute in helping you lose a bit of weight. We also contribute in removing the blood sugar that is there, and therefore will complement the effect of the effect of weight loss. So that is the second lesson. And today I won't be talking about high blood pressure. But I also reverse high blood pressure. But I noticed that exercise is more important for high blood pressure. More important than weight loss itself. Whether it's for me, but maybe because I wasn't too overweight, but exercise is key. Exercise is very key. That's what I discovered. It is the reverse in terms of diabetes. It's the reverse. So the two are complementary, but one is more important. If I have a patient who has high blood pressure, I will talk more about exercise. If the one who has diabetes, I will talk more about weight loss because the two are, and although the two are complementary. The fifth lesson that I learned is about intermittent fasting. So when I stopped eating lunch, in fact, I didn't realize that I was doing intermittent fasting until after I reversed diabetes, and I stumbled on an article I was reading. Then I said, but what I was doing was like intermittent fasting. I was really fasting for some number of hours before really I will eat. So I was trying to understand what was it. Then I understood that intermittent fasting has many benefits. It helps you lose weight. It helps you reverse insulin resistance, improve insulin sensitivity. It helps you reduce blood cholesterol. It helps reduce inflammation. It also helps reduce blood clot formation, and it has a wide number of benefits in general. And you will read everywhere, you Google it, you will see many things are written. But what I believe to me about intermittent fasting that did to me was that it helped me lose weight. It helped me lose weight. That's what I believe, because what I realized is that when I didn't eat at midday, in the evening, when I was eating, I tended to eat less than I normally would have eaten. It was quite surprising to me. It was like my stomach has shrunk, and I was eating less than before, even after fasting. And intermittent fasting also changed your circadian rhythm, because normally what makes you hungry is that your mind is already conditioned by this internal clock called circadian rhythm when it is time to eat. Because what makes you hungry is the ghrelin hormone, the hunger hormone secreted by the stomach, which goes to the hypothalamus and activate the hunger center, the hypothalamus, and you get hungry. But once you change that rhythm, and the period comes, and midday you are not eating, then it changes to dinner time. It is at dinner time that hormone is secreted. It is no longer secreted at midday, and that's why you don't feel hungry at midday anymore. So by changing circadian rhythm, you don't feel hungry at midday. And because you don't feel hungry at midday, your stomach tends to go down, because you are eating and food is accumulating in your stomach. The stomach keeps expanding. Then if it remains empty for a long time, then it actually shrinks. And then when you are eating, you start feeling full, and then you eat less. And I believe that is what helped me. I don't believe that fasting alone without losing weight that you are going to reverse your diabetes. I don't believe that. If you fast and it doesn't help you lose weight, I think that diabetes will remain there. It will not change. It will not go anywhere. So it has to be an instrument that will help you lose weight. It means that it has to reduce or the total amount of food that you eat. Because if it doesn't reduce the total amount of food that you eat, you won't lose weight. In fact, before I started intermittent fasting, what I tried to do was to reduce the food I was eating. I tried. That was one of the experiments that I tried. And it drove me crazy because just reducing the amount of food I was eating, I didn't change the circadian rhythm. So at that time, the hormone, the ghrelin hormone was still secreted. I still feel hungry. And my stomach was still not reduced. And so it was like for 1 month, I was struggling. I lost only 1 kilo. So it wasn't enough for me. And it didn't work for me. But if you are still able to reduce the total amount of food that you eat, you may still lose weight and will still work for you, but it is quite difficult from my experience without some sort of intermittent fasting. It helped me, but you can figure out what worked for you. Some people may find it just eating several times. I see people write that if you are diabetic, you break your food into several small pieces several times. I don't believe that, because for me, if I do that, then I will eat many times and eat a lot, and then I won't lose weight. If you are able to eat bit and eat small, that may work for you. But for me, I don't do that, because I think that if I'm doing that, I just expose myself to the risk of eating too much and then gaining more weight, and then actually doing away with the effect of weight loss. So the other important thing, which I realized as the sixth thing that I learned from it, is about low carb diet. One thing I also realized was that my diet was heavily carbohydrate. And when I was reducing the total amount of food I was eating, I reduced carbohydrate more. With all these, you have plantains, you have fufu, you have all these things. There are a lot of carbohydrate in it, and you are eating with little proteins and fats. So what I changed completely, and I was eating very little carbohydrate and more of that. Right now, I'm not worried about that I eat fat, because some people, oh, don't eat fat. I'm not worried about eating fat. I eat anything, fat or proteins I eat. But what I worry about the quantity I eat. That's all. Eating fat, I don't care about that, because I changed completely the content of the diet. I believe that one of the things that is causing the global pandemic in terms of obesity and in terms of diabetes is the carbohydrate diet. I know that our guidelines, most of the guidelines we take, for example, the UK, we have the Eat Well guide, which says that you should base your diet on carbs. In America, you have My Plate. The guidelines in America says you should base your diet on fat, on carbs. It's all about carbs, because you feel carbs, you can eat carbs with some level of flexibility, so far as your total calorie is not going to be above the 2,500 for men and 2,000 for women. You can still do it. I think it is an area which we need to review. I'm not very convinced about telling people that we should base your diet on carbohydrate and then add other things into it. Now I'm convinced that your diet should be based on proteins and healthy fats, and that the other things should come on in, and not the reverse, the other way. And I don't know, but I believe it is an area which we need to do some research. One of the things I realize is that when you are eating more proteins and fat, you get less hungry. When you eat carbs, you get, after a couple of hours, you want to eat again. You eat rice without a lot of, you start feeling hungry again after just a couple of hours. So you need to eat more. And that more, people then believe that you are not eating fat, but all that will be converted to fat again when you store. So it doesn't make sense to tell people to eat all the carbs that will finally be converted to fat, and then say that fat is the problem. All right. So that is where I believe we need some sort of, again, deep research into this area to really say whether we want to tell people, because so far, most of the guidelines have not focused on the amount of food you are supposed to eat. They focus on the quality, that you eat this, and eat this. They don't talk much about, which is the problem. Probably because it is also difficult to measure, to say people, because if you tell people to eat 2,500 calories, it's difficult to really measure that. But most of the things, we don't focus on that. We focus about the quality. You have to eat this, you have to eat, you have to take these oils, you have to take this one because it has these vitamins, it has this and all that. We focus on the quality, but the quantity is, I see, is what is killing us now. Maybe in those days before, when people were dying of vitamin deficiencies and all that, when they didn't have enough, it was really killing people and all that. But now people are eating, and they're eating excessive. What is killing people in dying now is excessive eating, not really deficiencies, except really in very poor environment where people do not have food. In most places, it is now that people are eating too much. And we really have to be out there and talk the truth. Because I know that it is very painful. People do not want to tell people that we are eating too much. People want to be good and kind and be well, but that is the truth. We have to speak the truth. That is where the problem is. And I realized it. So it is for me, and I was eating too much. If I could reduce my food by 50%, I'm still eating normally, then what, it means I was eating too much. Why was I eating? Why was the other 50% I was eating before? Where was it going? Why was I eating it? It doesn't make sense. So that is where the problems are. And the last thing, which a lesson that I learned, which I will want to talk about, is the calorie deficit diet. One of the surprising things that I also realized is that my diet was actually, and is still actually, calorie deficient. The current recommendation globally is that for men, you take 2,500 calories. For women, you take 2,000 calories, eat 2,000 calories per day, kilocalories per day. I normally, what I do now, I eat around 1,500 to 2,000 maximum kilocalories per day. I don't take 2,500. Usually it is around, turning around 1,500. I try to calculate it to see, because you can't be doing it every day. I took time to really measure, see how I was eating. I discovered that I wasn't taking 2,500. And then I was surprised when I started talking about it. Then I discovered that is a group of people out there who are like me, who are actually eating less calories to be healthy. And they are quite good, a number of them. I was surprised. When I was discussing social media, people contact me and say, no, I also eat less. I don't eat that amount of, and they were talking about what their experience about it. So what I believe now is there are a group of people out there, probably people who are predisposed to having diabetes, obesity, or other things, who need to eat less than the current recommendations. And so I think the recommendations have to give room for some group of people. And we need research in this area to really say, who are these people and how can we identify these people, and not to have a blanket recommendation for everyone. I believe that is an area which we also need research. One of the things that I realized this in this area is that in terms of people who are in terms of the calories that you take, some people actually either they are predisposed genetically or they have problems, what we call epigenetics. That's what I believe. I was trying to analyze what is happening, but I think there are maybe two groups of people. Either someone is predisposed genetically to a problem which will mean that that person will have to eat less than normal other people, or it is epigenetics. Epigenetics, I think, was first described by James Neal, where he described it quite a couple of decades back, and he discovered that if you grow up, especially when you are still young, and pass through harsh conditions, your genes will adapt. As your genes adapt to those harsh conditions, especially unstable food supply, then they will make your body to be able to store large amount, have the capacity to store it. The storage capacity will be high for any surplus food that you are eating. It will store it. But now, if you grow up and then the conditions change, you are no longer living in that harsh environment where your genes were helping you to survive by storing food, and then you are eating normally. Any excess food will be equally stored in that way, and then it will instead causing you a problem because your genes have adapted to harsh conditions, and now you are working in normal conditions, you are no longer high conditions. That's what we call epigenetics. And I believe that some people may also be experiencing this type of problem because of epigenetics, because they experience harsh environment during their childhood, or something that happened, or they may just be genetically predisposed that make them susceptible to really have to eat less than any normal person in order to really live normally like others. And these are still areas which I think a lot of research need to go into it to really unravel what is behind all this. But those are things that I learned from this. I still keep on, time and again, I still keep on doing some experiments in my life, because I know that as a researcher, I combine my research and medicine and all. I combine public health knowledge and try to experiment in my life. I know that many doctors have also experimented in their life. You remember Barry Marshall, who took Helicobacter pylori from a patient and put in his stomach to find out whether it was the one that is causing gastric ulcer. It experimented on himself. And finally, he found that it was it. And then not to talk of Jesse, who tried yellow fever, and he got infected with a mosquito to see whether the mosquito was the one causing yellow fever, and he finally died because he tried to, he got yellow fever and died. So people have done that, but I believe it is an area which is simple to me. I keep doing some sort of, it's like a exciting journey to me, some sort of self-experiment, which I call try, track and tell. I try something, I track to see whether it works. I tell whether to see whether I track my blood sugar, my blood pressure, or anything, and then I tell whether it works or not. Try, track and tell. That's how I call it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is just a summary of the lessons that I learned from reversing diabetes. Today, I didn't go deep into high blood pressure, but these are some of the key things that I learned. I believe that it is an area where we need to learn a lot. We need to research in the area, and in the next couple of years down, I believe that a lot of guidelines will change, a lot of clinical protocols will have to change, because a large amount of research is growing around this area, which is not in line with the current practices that we have. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Kongnyuy. That was really down to earth explanation. In the audience, we have many of we have physicians. We also have many of our relatives who may be suffering from diabetes. We are increasingly recognizing the pandemic of NCDs, non-communicable diseases in Africa and and in Cameroon as well, how that the proportion of people living with diabetes and hypertension is continuing to scale. So thanks a lot for breaking this down in a way that's so simple to understand, even though you have so many degrees and accolades, but you made this so simple, so relatable, so down to earth, and I really just wanted to thank you for that presentation. So I wanted to pass it over to Alison to just do a temperature check of the town hall before we get into questions and questions for the audience might have for Dr. Eugene. We just want to give you some time to maybe take a glass of water and just catch your breath before we delve into the questions and answers. So Alison, please take it away.
Thank you, Brian. And Dr. Kongnyuy, I think you're really going to need that glass of water or cup of tea, because we've been monitoring the chat and there are some interesting comments already coming up. So I'm foreseeing that the Q&A session is going to be a very lit one. Before we dive into Q&A, I'm just going to randomly call on a few people who've joined us during today's session. And it's interesting because I know some of them, and I know they do not necessarily have like a highly clinical background, but just to show how important this topic is and how cross-cutting it is, we have people from different backgrounds joining us. Julie Myson. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Alison. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's good to see everybody.
Excited to have you. Tell me, what do you think about today's session? This is probably the first time we are having you here at the town hall, and we are keen to know your thoughts about how today's session has been so far. Was it warm? Was it cold? Did you think Dr. Kongnyuy could spice it up a little more? What are your thoughts?
No, I thought it was very appropriate, and I know I didn't join for all of it, but for the parts I heard, at least in terms of many of the comments that people have also said, it was very digestible. I joined actually because I'm to your point earlier, I'm not a clinician, but I'm a data scientist for a company that pretty much is doing research in what Dr. Kongnyuy has been mentioning. And so it was very interesting to me personally to at least see the experience from like a perspective outside of the San Francisco area, or at least outside of like the US diet norms, if that makes sense. And that's why I also shared the link I shared. So it's very interesting to have a perspective from somebody that's not related to the company I'm working at, but that aligns with the same research. And so I figured I would join.
Oh, that's amazing. I've just reshared the link in the chat, maybe for those who might have missed it in the whole trend of messages. But Julie, do you mind just saying a word or two about this upcoming conference? What is it all about?
Oh, no. So to be clear from my message, I have a conflicting conference at this point in time. It is happening right now, but I joined because I couldn't escape the topic. Like I couldn't not join today's topic, even if there's a conflicting conference. So it's not in the field. That conference specifically is an MIT African Innovation Conference, but I didn't want to miss today's topic because it was so important.
Oh, I get you. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to call on someone else maybe to share their thoughts with us. And I'm going to call on Apabeloi Mbappe. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. And please forgive me if I'm not. Apabeloi Mbappe.
Yes, please. It was very interesting. I followed you from Cameroon. Unfortunately, I had a breakage on the internet connection, but I got more than 50% of the presentation, and it was very enriching. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for your insights and for sharing your thoughts. Louisa, is it just me, or did you feel like you also need to put in a lot more work? When I was listening to Dr. Kongnyuy speak, I felt like I've just been joking with my health. Like he is so determined and he has his calories calculated and he's so strict and disciplined. And I'm just thinking, what have I been doing with my life? Each time I'm going to be like, oh, I'm starting weight loss, and then I eat broccoli and cauliflower for a few days. And then after that, I go back to default. How did you feel about today's presentation?
Definitely self-challenging myself right now. I'll tell you the truth. I was on that other side of the window. I am still there where, every day you set goals and you're like, okay, in the next month, I'm going to do exercises and lose 3 kilos, for example. I try hard not to be very hard on myself. But when I listened to his story, I saw the importance of persistence, the importance of doing your own research and knowing what works for you, the importance of listening to yourself, knowing what the outcome is, knowing what you're fighting for. And on a personal note, I think from today, I have to take a different route, really. There is a lot to do. There's a lot of work to do. Maybe sometimes I tell my patients, sometimes we underestimate the importance of drinking water, for example. Maybe it's just setting the goal of drinking more water, or setting the goal of eating less, or eating less carbs. And again, like you mentioned, we don't want to fight our dodo, I like it. I don't want to fight it, but I have to come to a point where I tell myself that this is not the right thing to do. So I think there's a lot of work to be done here, personally.
Yeah, I agree. And usually it's at the beginning of the year that we set all these resolutions. Like this year, I'm going to eat healthier, I'm going to do exercise. And before January is over, oh boy, all those resolutions are back in the water. We've gone back to
exactly.
default. So, yeah. Okay. Now we're going to hand it over back to Brian, who's going to take us through the Q&A session.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alison. And I just want to reiterate that if there are people in the audience who have questions to ask, please feel free to raise your hand, and I will be able to call you on to ask your question. So just raise your hand, and in that order, we will be able to. The information that Dr. Kongnyuy has shared with us today, it's always great when we have someone who has. Excuse me. It's always great when we have someone who has a personal story, because the story in his book is truly, it's a life experience. He's gone through this. I love, Dr. Kongnyuy, I love what you wrote in the book about the 3 T's, the try, test, and try, track, and tell. It's really amazing, the details that you really shared on how you were able to test different strategies to figure out what really worked for you personally and all that. And with the wave of diabetes and hypertension that we are seeing growing in Cameroon and growing in Africa and growing globally, we have at least, each of us has at least a relative, a parent, an uncle, and an aunt who is suffering from this diabetes. So the information that you are sharing with us, you have shared with us today, is really helpful to really help the health of our own relatives and our own community. So I just thank you so much. I wanted to take a round to just go with the co-moderators to, if they could, before we go into the Q&A, if their thoughts from Dr. Kongnuy's presentation. Elvis, if you don't mind, what were your? So it's great to.
Dr. Kongnyuy would have been my best friend if at the time when he was talking about BMI, he had remained with the initial story of what he thought about BMI of above 26. But when he shut down and went below and even talked about 24 and then went to 23, I said, okay, I've just lost a friend. That's because we all know how difficult this issue is. And Unite for Health Foundation had tried to do some free screening for BMI, blood pressure, and diabetes in Bamenda. And we did that job, as I presented like a month ago. And we realized a lot of people in Bamenda, none out of the 560 people we screened, none was within the BMI that Kongnyuy has specified as that which can help us reverse diabetes. None. I can present the data to you. So everybody was above BMI. So that's an important issue. That's an important takeaway for me for this presentation, just how much we can take that BMI calculation serious. to reverse, our health condition. So thank you so much, Kongnyuy. It's been a very interesting session, and I hope a lot more people have questions they are going to ask you.
Thank you so much, Elvis. Teresia, are you with us?
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Kongnyuy, for this presentation. I'm with you guys. Yes, sorry I can't be on camera. I couldn't miss this session for anything. Right now I'm in my car because I don't want to get into the house for my kids to start screaming. And I was running errands, but I had to listen to the whole session because this is a topic which I'm so interested in. And it's something I've been working on for the past 5 years. And looking at it on the clinical trial side, I've run a lot of trials on diabetes, and it's been like something I really love and really want to know about and talk about it and what people are doing about it in Cameroon. So Dr. Kongnyuy, you brought in a lot of information, like a lot of important information. Like, I don't even know what to say. And I'm really glad you had this session with us. And the key points here, like you said, like now people are looking into the keto diet, low carb. You have to lose weight, low carb is better for you, and other stuff. And this topic is also like personally touching to me because I know more than 2 people that died this year in Cameroon because of diabetes. And they're like, oh, the sugar was at 5. I'm like, what do you mean by the blood sugar was at 5? Like, that's in the 500. Like, people in Cameroon are like having blood sugars in the 500 and they don't know. They go into diabetic coma and they're like, oh, she wasn't fat, she wasn't this. You have to watch all these things. You have to look at all these things. And I'm really dying to ask a lot of questions to Dr. Kongnyuy, but let me wait for the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Teresia. Gisela, if you have the floor, you can ask your question.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Nice to see you.
Great. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Gisela, a medical doctor from Pride country, Cameroon, and I'm presently taking an MSc in the University of Oxford. Brian here is a brother from way back, so I'm very happy to be with you on this forum. Dr. Eugene, thank you very much for this very insightful presentation. I couldn't relate more, how you brought out this Pareto principle, this 20-80 rule, showing that weight loss is that 20% that would need to achieve the 80% of diabetes reversal. I find it very helpful and insightful. And I've always told my mates that it's better to be underweight as long as it's not due to some physical health condition or mental stress or anxiety and all that. Because sometimes people watch me still making effort and I tell them, no, I'm overweight, but you look small. I said, my BMI is not fine. I say, no, don't push too hard. You may go too under. And you have just given me, that affirmation that I should keep on because it's worth it. My question for you, doctor, is what informed your choice to rather skip lunch in the place of breakfast or dinner? But did you have some scientific? I know, like it's a very popular saying that breakfast is like the most important meal of the day. But in the light of intermittent fasting, there are different schemes or regimes, and some people take even at times 24-hour fast, or they can do a fast that involves skipping breakfast and rather lunch or dinner. So what kind of informed your choice? Was it just, should I say random, or a personal preference, or is it something you really recommend as a standard to keep with? Thank you.
Yeah, I think Dr. Kongnyuy, just answer the, maybe we'll just go one.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gisela. In fact, I can say I was trying different things, and it was one of the things I was trying. So it happened that it happened to be lunch that I skipped. But if lunch didn't work, probably I might have tried another one. Okay. I will not say that it was because of this. Probably one of the reasons I started with lunch too is because I knew that if I was lunch is I eat outside home, but I eat breakfast and dinner at home. I didn't want to be skipping my meals at home and then going and eating lunch somewhere in a restaurant somewhere alone. So it was also what made me to start eating, skipping lunch first, which I'm eating outside when I'm at work. I wouldn't really say that I recommend that you should skip a lunch, not breakfast or dinner. Okay, to me, what I believe is weight loss. Anything that you can do that will make you lose weight, I believe that will work. I believe that if you do anything and you don't lose weight, that thing is unlikely to work. So if it is breakfast that will make you lose weight, I think that you should do it, which is dinner will make you lose weight. To me, some people find it difficult to eat late, for example. I'm not worried about eating late, so because they have problems and all that. It doesn't matter to me. I can eat anytime, but insofar, but if you have problems eating dinner, you may decide that I'm going to skip the dinner and eat. But altogether, make sure that it helps you to lose weight. That is that's what I believe based on my own experience.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Mm.
Thank you so much. Killian Asangana.
Thank you very much for having me ask a question. I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm a layman. I'm going to ask the question. I suffer from diabetes type 2. That's why I really wanted to attend this meeting. I succeeded to reduce 20 kilograms in weight just by managing my body mass index, and my sugar level went right down. So my doctor, who does a checkup every 3 months, told me that she was afraid that my sugar level may be too low. So that's what I want to ask. What is it? Because being too low is a problem and being too high is a problem. And you did not talk about A1C, this medical term that they use to quantify the amount of sugar in the blood. Please, if you would say something about that, I'll be very happy. Thank you very much.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Killian. I will say that I don't believe that if you lose weight, then your sugar level will get too low. And then it will become a big problem. Okay, what will guide me will be your body mass index. Did you know? Did he tell you what was your body mass index? Or if you can give your height and your weight, somebody can quickly calculate and let us know.
I have online websites where I can calculate my body mass index.
Yeah, that is what will guide, because it is also what we should be also aware is that doctors are also influenced. Like I was influenced before. I believe that people that overweight was normal. And if a doctor believes that, he will start telling his patient that this is normal. And we risk going to that belief. That's what I believe, because everybody, like what Evie said, Bamena, you're seeing everybody who is either who doesn't have a body mass index of less than 23. And so everybody is, when you see that continuously, then you start accepting that that is the way we are supposed to live. That's the normal thing. So I did mention about glycated hemoglobin, A1C. It was in the beginning, maybe by then you had not joined. Because to say that you have actually reversed diabetes, that is the standard gold test that you need to go through and say, well, in the last 3 months, your blood sugar has been normal. Okay, so I did do that. So it's something that for you to say that it is now normal, if your blood sugar is reversed completely, to me, I wouldn't be afraid if my body mass index is normal that I'm going to go hypoglycemic just by losing weight. Somebody can contradict me, but I don't think that you would just go hypoglycemic just by losing weight, unless you go beyond 18.5, which is underweight. weight, it may be a problem, but I still wonder whether it will actually cause hypoglycemia. So were you able to calculate your body mass index? That can be helpful from the website.
I've not done it right now, but the last time before I lost the weight, I did it. My body mass index was 30. So then
you were saying that you are going to go hypoglycemic?
No, then I lost the weight. I came down to like 26.
Your body mass index was now 26.
Yes. So then my doctor was saying that my A1C was too low and I got down too fast. And
okay, it was the speed with which it was the speed with which you went down. If that is the case, you are already down. I will not be going up because you have already lost weight anyway.
Yeah.
He was worried about the speed with which you are, because it is also risky to go down too low. But if you have already gone down, don't go up because the speed, don't go up again. Just stay there for some time and keep losing weight gradually. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Eugene, for
all right.
those really personal advice. I will hand over to Teresa. Just make your question brief so that we can round up soon. Teresa.
Hi, Dr. Kongnyuy. My question was more about Cameroon, right? So when you talk about like eat like a low carb, calorie deficit and everything, if you're in the US and you're in the UK, you can easily count your calories. You look at the label on the box and all that. If you're in Cameroon or in a village, you have to eat your fufu corn and jamanjama. How do you get like the carbs in there, like the low carbs? Because I know for sure diabetes, you need to do the low carb. So if you're in Cameroon, how do you get the low carb thing? How do you know this is low carb? Don't do this, don't do that. That's my question.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. I didn't, concerning calculating calories, I didn't recommend that people calculate calories. Carbs is carbohydrate, okay? So because counting calories is quite difficult. I didn't mind because I wanted to see whether I was actually eating the amount. I didn't believe that I was taking 2,500 kilocalories per day. And when I calculated, it's around 1,500, 2,000 maximum. It never goes above. So that's why I understood that I was taking a low calorie deficit. I call it calorie deficit diet, okay? Now, when it comes to low carb, it is low carbohydrate. Low carbohydrate you can know because you know carbohydrate food that we eat. These are fufu, they are corn, they are cassava, they are plantains, things that most of them are bread, rice, and all that. They are carbohydrate. And then you know proteins. They are fish, they are meat, there is pork, and fat in them. Protein, most of the protein, they do have a bit of fat, okay? So I was talking about balancing our diet in the sense that our diet, often in Cameroon especially, is heavily high in carbohydrates. Those white food that you see, most of the white foods that you see are carbohydrate in them. They are heavily full of it. And so I was saying during the time I was losing weight and changing my diet, I reduced much of those carbohydrate diet and was taking more of the protein and the healthy fats. That's what I was explaining. I hope it is clearer.
Yeah, thanks. That's very helpful. In Cameroon, in our context, we have difficulties really quantifying our calorie intakes and how to even measure the calorie output.
Even everywhere, it is not easy. Even in Europe, it is difficult for people to count calories. So we can't. I don't advise people that you keep counting your calories and weighing every day. It is quite difficult thing and tedious thing. Okay, you can do it in form of an experiment to see how much you are eating. But the fact is that you need to reduce. Measure your body mass index. We tell you whether you have lost weight enough. If your body mass index is high, it means that you are eating too much. That's it. Simple.
That's absolutely. Dr. Foma.
Oh, okay. Yes, okay, thank you. So I'm on call, so that's why I had to put myself off. I want to say this was a very interesting presentation, and I'll go back to try to just put a little contribution to the previous question as an internist. Like really losing weight and someone contributed in the chart, losing weight and your hemoglobin A1C reducing, it's not going to make you hypoglycemic. It's actually a very good thing that they did lose weight. It's just an advice to the person who is asking that question. I'm not an endocrinologist, but I'm an internal medicine doctor, and I will tell you that if it's helping you and your sugar is now constant, maybe it's time to stop what you were taking, because insulin in itself is going to cause you hypoglycemic. So maybe it's time for your doctor to roll back on your medications, and then you will not become hypoglycemic. You may become hypoglycemic if you continue taking the medication. And if you're on glipizide or any of those sulfonylureas, you may become hypoglycemic. But if you're just on metformin, you may not become, and it's time maybe for you to stop. And just to put a more light into what Dr. Kongnyuy is saying, there's a lot of research. I will talk about bariatric surgery, which goes to the point that he hammered on, losing weight. Bariatric surgery is used to lose weight, but it's also used to cure diabetes. A lot of you may not have read that, and there is a very renowned Cameroonian who I think is public about it, who is one of the fathers of bariatric surgery, Dr. Forby. He created the Forby's pouch. I think he was very overweight, and he did do bariatric surgery himself, and the diabetes disappeared. And it's something to look at. We use it a lot in order to, it's an aggressive form of trying to lose weight. It's approved in the US for those who are have a BMI above 40, or those who have a BMI above 35 and have tried other means and it's not working and have comorbidities with 35. But it's something to show you that the principles behind what he's preaching today, it's like a gospel that we need to do a lot of research to get to the bottom of what is really happening. It's a proof of principle that those who lose weight for type 2 diabetes tend to reverse the disease. The question is, why don't we do a lot as physicians? I don't know. Why don't I do it? I think it's a call for question for us to start talking about it. Now, this one now is going to be a question, and going back into epigenetics, looking at just the population where I am from Africa. When I was in Africa, everyone was Black. But now in the US, in my population that I deal with, I deal now mostly with cancer patients, but I tend to see that those who are diabetic are mostly Blacks, they are mostly Hispanic, they are also mostly Native American Indians compared to other races. Does it go to play with our epigenetics that we had lived for a long time with starvation and had gotten used to that kind of starvation diet? I think it's a whole theory in genetics and epigenetics that says that. And also there is this change in the way we eat and the amount of food we consume once people migrated over here, that has turned to affect us more than it's affecting the Caucasian population. So I don't know exactly if there is something else to throw more light into that. And we see that with all the metabolic syndromes, really. They do affect Blacks more, and that's why more Blacks died during COVID. And more Latinos too did die during COVID. And the prevalence of diabetes is slightly higher or drastically higher compared to the others. So those were the two things I just wanted to talk about and to see what's your insight into that. Thank you, Dr. Kongnyuy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Mono, for their contribution, very significant contribution. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thanks. Dr. Foma also wanted to know your thoughts on just how this has changed, particularly for Africans, for instance, who migrated to the United States. That changed.
That is exactly epigenetics, because what the conditions you grew up with, if they change significantly, then if they were harsh when you are growing up, then your genes adapt to those harsh conditions. And then if later on they change significantly, if the condition changes significantly, then you are exposed to more problems. And exactly that's what Dr. Mono was explaining. And I'm fully agree with him that some of those things may be linked to epigenetics, if not also genetic predisposition.
Yeah, and this kind reminds me of something I read about the health problems and health outcomes that we experience are almost 80% probably medical, then 20% medical, and probably 80% linked to the social determinants of health. So the conditions in which people are born, where they live, how they work, and how that has a significant impact on their health outcomes, particularly. So the notion that health is not only about, falling ill and that, but really how the other factors that we are surrounded by really have a significant impact on our own well-being overall, particularly for things like for diseases like diabetes, right, and hypertension. Louisa, please.
Thanks, Brian. And I'm going to just take a little bit of time just to reiterate on the point where Dr. Mono said about Native Americans. Here we have the indigenous people in Canada, and I was actually having this conversation with one of my mentors the other day about why is it that we're seeing more diabetes in these people, and I think it's really linked to epigenetics. My question, Dr. Kongnyuy, is more of as a primary care provider, I tend to see a lot of patients with diabetes, right? And you've given very, very interesting points here that I would really like to share with them. But you have been going through this journey for the past 10 years. And I just want to know, when everything reversed for you, what did you do after that? How did you, what was the way forward for you? What has kept you in this position without getting back to to your previous stage of diabetes or overweight? What have you been doing so far?
Thank you very much. I think it is quite simple. It's encouraging too, because as a doctor, I knew the consequences of diabetes. So if you happen to reverse it, it encourages you to do more things towards that. So I would not imagine that I would do something that will make my body mass index again to grow up. Since I lost weight to that level, I'm 70, I'm always fluctuating between 70, 68, 69, 70, and I don't go beyond 70. And I do obviously my annual checks every time to check that everything is doing. But over time, I've also gain a lot of energy, that I do a lot of exercise than I used to do even when I reverse it. So the interesting thing is that once you are able to reverse it and it gives you that joy, then it gives you the will to keep going. And if at all you have also a family that really supports you and all that, then things you get even better. Yeah, I see Dr. Iran and Julie.
Yeah, Doc, please.
Sorry, that's me. I think I logged in with the wrong. It's Eugene. Sorry, I think I logged in with the wrong login details. Thank you so much for the very interesting talk. I'm Eugene. I'm a pediatrician, and I'm also a nutritionist, and I'm one of those who are very pro alternative medicine. People accuse me of being very pro, asking people to watch what they eat, count their steps, exercise, work out, and all whatnot. And I believe that, just in contribution, just to add to what the doctor has said, I think is it Louisa who said she's been trying to, you keep setting goals and having to go back all the time. I believe that one of the best ways to have to lose weight really is to incorporate physical activity, healthy eating into your day-to-day life. So I'll start something like nutrition, so feeding, for example. Carb counting, as Dr. Eugene said, is not a practical way of doing things, unless you want to do an experiment. But if you tell somebody just start from your current baseline, cut down the carbs. If you don't know what carbs are, you can always Google up corn fufu, how many carbs, the calories, corn fufu, how many calories you find the information online. So just cut down all the white things that you're doing. Eat more whole meal if you can. Eat more green plantains instead of rice plantains, and eat more vegetables, because obviously things like vegetables are feeding. So it's just giving that practical advice. And regarding something like exercise, a lot of people find it difficult to do exercise. But personally, I've come to the realization that the best way to do exercise is to not do it because you want to lose weight. Obviously, unless you're sick. If you're sick, then it becomes an emergency. Then you can get help. And if you can afford to get the help, maybe of a fitness instructor and all whatnot. But me, when I leave work, if I look at my watch and I've only done like 6,000 steps, I walk around the hospital park, and I don't use the lift at work. I take the stairs. If it's a day that I'm going to come and work out, or if I'm not going to work out, I'll just go around the hospital, use the stairs, just climbing up and down, walk around the park to get to my car. So and you need to think about your motivation. If your motivation is losing weight and you're going on the scale every week, you're going to quickly lose the motivation. But if your motivation is that you want to have cardiovascular fitness, for example, or because you know that it's good for your health, you just want to be fit, and obviously exercise has so many more benefits than just weight loss, then you have more reasons to keep going, because weight loss is like a side effect really of having a good exercise routine. It should really come as a side effect. There's that. And also, I just wanted to, I think regarding the African diet and Africans really developing diabetes really quickly in the West, I believe that our ancestors, they ate a lot of carbs because they also did a lot of activity. They went to farms, they went hunting, fishing, and all sorts. And we still are trying to eat the same diet and sitting in our offices. No, it's not going to work. And so when you move over to the West, it's even worse, because if you're in the US, for example, you step into your car, you hardly ever walk and do things, So is that drastic change will obviously definitely affect your metabolism. And the question I just wanted to throw, is this: obviously nutrition is one of those things that it's difficult to do research in, because it's the ethics of it, and it's difficult to say, to really do randomized control trials. For example, in the UK, there was a trial of low-calorie diet, giving people 800 calories a day, and they reversed it, and I can't remember the figures, but there was a significant effect, like people reversing their diabetes. But there's no funding. Obviously, it's not going to give money to the drug company. But anyway, what do we think about fitness? So for people who are well and not people with like diabetes and all that, is being fit and overweight better than compared? What is it like your overall cardiovascular? Who has better cardiovascular fitness? That's the question. Someone who's overweight, like say your BMI is 28 and physically fit, or someone who's, say, BMI of 22, 23 and very physically unfit. Like, half of how, who do we think is better, like in terms of long-term outcomes? That's the question I was going to throw. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Doc. That question, I will leave the question to the specialist on cardiovascular disease. I'm OBGYN, so I got into this as a patient myself. So trying to compare whether if you are really normal weight, BMI, or somebody who is fit and overweight, which one is better? Based on my experience, I will obviously stick to what I observe, that because it depends on now, the question is if you are healthy. That one will be difficult for me, but if you are somebody who is predisposed, I would say, well, it's better to be really have a normal weight. And since it is also difficult to say whether you are predisposed or not, so I will always, to me personally, I always think about the normal weight, because it's actually difficult to say whether somebody who is healthy and fit now will not develop something the next day, even though, but if we could have, if research can show us, can have some type of genetic mapping that will identify people who are predisposed, and then you know that you are not really predisposed to any of those type of disease, and that you can actually be aware and normal. That one now would be quite exciting to know that you can actually live healthily for a long time. You will never worry that you get something and somebody need to go. So it's a very, very difficult question. I don't have an answer to it. I wonder whether there's somebody who can answer.
Yeah. Thank you. I think the reason I asked is when I did my master's research.
Yeah.
One of the studies that we this is a concept we came across, and there were a few studies we looked at that actually showed that the long-term outcomes of people who are within a certain age group, they were quite youngish people who are actually, so they were just trying to emphasize the effect of exercise really, and that people who actually work out often have better cardiovascular fitness and long-term cardiovascular health than people who don't at all and who have a normal BMI. But I think there's been some controversy. So I was really trying to find out what people think. Maybe obviously I'm just bringing to the house the experts or people who know better. I think I read some other controversy. I was just trying to find out which is which. But as you say, I agree with you. It's good if you can have both, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah,
I was going to say that from what I observed, what you rightly say, in terms of cardiovascular disease, particularly high blood pressure, I found that exercise was more important. But if it is diabetes, it is the BMI. So it depends on what you are talking about, whether the person you are trying to avoid diabetes or you are trying to avoid cardiovascular risk.
So what I wanted to add is just a short, I think Dr. Judwing asked a very complex question that goes into the root of trying to re-stratify patients. And what I would say is the biggest clinical trial that is looking at cardiovascular risk calculators actually had certain things that could be confounders in what we're dealing with. Age is one factor. Diabetes itself was single-handedly one of the most contributing factors in calculating the cardiovascular risk perception for any patient. Sex also has something to do. Males were more prone than females. Being a smoker lifestyle, modifications. So those patients that themselves do exercise and smoke are different from those who are sedentary and don't smoke. Then you have things which like cholesterol that has other effects. There are others who are genetically prone to having high cholesterol, different from those who are having high cholesterol as a result of being obese. So someone could be this thin and still has excessively high cholesterol and triglycerides, which makes this whole thing really complex. And those who are hypertensive in themselves, because hypertension in itself, as both of you said, there is a factor of exercise that may help. And there is a factor of being Black, staying in the tropics and retaining sodium, which was a genetical evolution of the Black man in Africa. Nephrologists will tell you a lot more about that, those who are doing research into that. And there is the aspect of epigenetics on how we store fat, meaning we do really store fat differently. And I think there was a time you talked about the level of glycogen in the body and all of that. It has been proven that people have different levels. Some people do really store fat as brown fat, others store it as white fat. And they do tap into that fat differently and use it differently metabolically. And I think Judwing's question is a big question on research. It's a big question to piece out things, but both of them, I think they are good, but it's something which she's a nutritionist, she's a pediatrician. I think with time, she's gonna work on that too. And may help us answer that question. I don't know if there's any cardiologists who may want to throw light into what we're just talking about before the other questions. Okay, Brian, you have the floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Etienne.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. Hello, yeah. I'm not a cardiologist, but at least I'm a cardiac rehabilitation specialist. So I just want to throw in this idea. Yeah, if you were to put in actually somebody who is sedentary and somebody who is really fit, meaning that he's doing exercise to a level which is, to a threshold level to really on daily basis, but the problem is just that he's eating he's taking in excess calories, in which case we are talking about metabolically fit individual. They are more likely to have lower incidence of NCDs in general compared to those who are slim, but they are not physically fit. Okay, they are not physiologically fit. I wonder this definition of fitness, because sometimes when you define fitness, people look at the size of the body. So it's not that physiology, I mean, you have to be physiologically fit, in which case your body must be able to use substance and burn and produce energy to allow you sustain an endurance exercise for a prolonged period of time. And being able to do that, you need a lot of, for instance, mitochondria. You need a lot of, how do I put it? You need a lot of, mitochondria, for instance, to produce the energy, and other changes within your body, for instance, your endothelium being able to function normally in order to induce vasodilation, which will allow blood flow to different active muscles for you to do such an exercise. So if that is just the case, that yes, you are exercising quite well, but you are not actually controlling your input of energy, then you are likely, if you sustain it for a prolonged period of time, yes, your incidence of cardiovascular disease and NCDs is likely to be less. As you rightly pointed, somebody might just be thin, and you look at the total cholesterol, total fat in the body, and it's right up there compared to somebody who is really bulky and walking around really. So if your body is adapted and is trained to actually use up energy as such, then yes, you have more reduced chances of having NCDs. But once you stop that, then you lose the benefit of exercise. And if you maintain it, there's some concept of, we call the obesity paradox, which shows that people who are morbidly obese and have heart failure tend to survive better than those who are that. But definitely, if you are active during an active period and you are doing the exercise, you are not likely to have such an incident. The prevalence and incident with those who are fit is reduced actually. Well, that is, I mean, there's a lot of things which you, I mean, if you want to look at papers and look at the evidence, you definitely see a lot of things which some might be contradictory, but I think the trend is being fit actually reduces the overall incidence of NCDs in general. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your feedback, and thanks a lot for those comments. So we're going to run. I just want to remind people that we do have a parking lot usually at the end of the Zoom where we can still hang out, where there's no recording of the sessions, where you can ask additional questions if you may want to hang out and discuss in the parking lot. So I'll just take the last few questions that are hanging. Aaron and Julie. Aaron.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, it's a pleasure. It's a renewed pleasure to be with you on Saturday's evening, especially with Dr. Kongnyuy, who did a very brilliant presentation. And actually, I'm a surgeon, and also I'm very passionate about public health. I also almost did endocrinology at a certain time where I was about to finish med school. I was really into endocrinology, a lot of into endocrinology. So I kept this little passion for diabetes, and the fact that in my daily practice, where I'm doing more of primary care and primary surgical care here in Douala, I see a lot of people who have complication of diabetes, and I always wondered how we can really prevent diabetes. And this reversal of diabetes, and I've seen it with, I'm still trying to look for the name of the guy. There was a thing, a GI, an American GI, a young guy who had a weight, he was very obese, he had also high blood pressure and diabetes, and he went almost through the same process. He's now doing a lot of conference around the world on how to change the reverse diabetes. Who, I think it's the first time I heard about somebody who reversed diabetes by losing weight. And the more we go into those experiences that people are sharing, like Dr. Kongnyuy, you see that a lot. And from almost what you said, scientifically it's been proven that reducing the diet and also doing a lot of exercise is more benefit in terms of reducing the occurrence, the incidence of diabetes or reversing diabetes. My question is, let's say we are in Cameroon socially, there is this thing that there has been a real change in the trends. It's like our ancestors, being fat was not really something important. If you see the old pictures of during the colonialism and that period, you see the pictures of most of the chiefs and their guards, and people were quite lean compared to the white people who were there, who was already having this, we'll say, the pot belly at that time, apart from maybe some of the military. But nowadays, there's this social trend of taking weight, being, let's say, shapy, all those things that everybody seems like, no, it's good like this, it's good that you have a small belly. No, you just got married, you should get a small, you shouldn't stay like this. There are all these things around that are, let's say, it's like asking people to go towards gaining weight. But meanwhile, we are scientific and even the empirical knowledge, we know that gaining weight is actually predisposes you to all these NCDs. So my question, how do we translate this knowledge into, let's say, a new social habit? How do you communicate so that people know more and more that actually we have to lose weight, we have to, let's say, try and cut, let's say, because losing weight, sometimes people take it a little bit like, let's say, cutting that trend of gaining weight. How do we translate it into the general knowledge? Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Very well noted. I just want to pass on to Julie so he can just take both questions at once. Julie.
Thank you. Interesting enough, that was my third question. So I was going to save it for the parking lot. At least I have a different question answered. So, but my main one, and I might have missed this because I didn't attend everything. I was curious about if any additional Cameroonian or African that you know, Dr. Kongnyuy, has actually followed your example. And what did it take to convince them? Like and let me be specific. Have you influenced a Cameroonian to do this long term? And what did it take to convince that person to do it long term? And I can add more background here just because like convincing people to follow a new diet, even if it's for the benefit of their health, sometimes can be very challenging. And I suspect the challenges will be different from the American perspective compared to like the Cameroonian perspective. Like you might have seen the chat with the talk about plantains. I fully understand how it's hard to, resist them. And so I'm just curious about like what it took for you to convince somebody who's a Cameroonian to potentially follow your example.
Yes. Thank you very much, Erwan and Julie. Erwan, both of your questions are quite very complex questions. And you will see that in the book, No Pills, No Needles, is the last chapter talking about how complex these issues are because they involved changing the norms. And I agree with Dr. Erwan. I was actually very, very shocked when I saw the picture. It was about the one of the jujus in the Salt Palace, the Yemeron, in 1960, the senior people from the palace who are leading the juju, and compared to today, and I saw that they were quite slim. But the trend now is that you have to join, you have to have a big stomach. That is now, everybody who is there, you have really a big stomach coming out, it shows. And it was really striking putting the two pictures together and say, wow, is it what was happening in 1960 and how it has changed? And we have all accepted that this is the way people should be, that if you don't have that big stomach, then it's not normal, you have to. So I agree with you, it is a trend. And we need to change that trend, but it's not an easy thing to do because it required change in the social norms. Social norms will not be, it is something to be done. It needs communication. We need champions, people who will go out there and really, who are from the community and say, this is it. We need leaders who will really pass the message, and people in the community who will say, because it all came from the fact that as the middle class was growing and people with middle class, they started developing big stomach. And then we think that to be really a good person in the society, you have to have a big stomach. And the trend all changed like that. And then everybody believed. But it's time to start changing. I mean, changing, but it's not an easy thing to do. We need really champions out there. We need traditional and religious leaders to be really vocal about it. And really pass the message. We also need young people who are out there, who are stars, who are musicians, to really pass the right message so that we can change the entire trend in the society. Otherwise, we are going towards the wrong direction. And it is evident that despite the fact that we are normalizing overweight and obesity, our ancestral history is telling us that it's not the right direction that we need to go, given the fact that we are experiencing epidemics of obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure. Concerning Julie, it's also quite a difficult question, but I will tell you that a couple of people have talked to me. I was shocked. For example, last 1.5 months ago, I was in South Africa, Johannesburg. And I read people, some of them I met for the first time, and they said they have read my book and they are following up. And I do meet many people who talked about it. Since the book is published 1 year ago, that is May will still make it 1 year. So I can't say that it has made people change a lot. But there are many people who actually acknowledge that they are following what is in the book. And I was impressed, and I'm impressed actually when I go somewhere and somebody, even here, anywhere I go, somebody will meet me and say, well, you know, I'm following you in social media, I'm doing this. I say, what? But I don't know you. But they will say, I'm doing this and all that. So it looks like there are a couple of people out there who are really interested in it and are doing something. I don't know the way I will be able to actually measure the impact, but I'm sensing that it is having some impact to some people who are actually interested in it and are doing something based on that.
Thank you so much. It's really great to know that your work is having a huge impact across the world. Before I pass it over, to Elvis, who is going to make a summary of this session for us. I just wanted to pinpoint a few questions that were dropped in the chat, which I didn't have a chance to read through. One of the problems we have, Dr. Eugene, is this Mimbo Palava that our people have back in Cameroon. And really, how do we, if you could talk a little bit about these alcohol problems and diabetes, would be very helpful. Dr. Eugene, I think also posed a question about what your thoughts are on would you recommend gastric bypass surgery for someone who's been struggling with weight loss? especially women dealing with post-cystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, making it harder for them to lose weight. Someone also asked the question about postpartum weight as well, and how do we regulate those? How much time can you ascertain your ongoing weight loss regimen, whether or not it's efficient if you have an ongoing weight loss regimen? Someone asked about the role of tea in losing weight. I know there's been a lot also out there. Just briefly, what your comments on those questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Concerning tea, there are maybe teas out there that lose weight. I did try. It was one of the things I tried during the trials that I did, but it didn't help me lose weight. I can't be sure because I didn't try all types of teas. So it's something so complex. I can't be categorical that it helps or it doesn't help. But I tried it myself, the green tea, and it didn't work. So, and I moved on. Concerning surgery, it is evident, there is scientific evidence that if you do surgical bypass, you reduce, you lead to weight loss. And I do believe that anything that will lead to weight loss can help you reverse diabetes, whether it is surgery or any other thing that will help you insofar as it will make you lose weight. I believe that it will help you reverse diabetes. Postpartum weight. Normally, women after childbirth will normally lose their weight significantly within the first 6 weeks. But some will still have some extra weight for a couple of months down the line. Usually within the first 6 months is not a period to be worried. But after 1 year, if your weight is still there, maybe you need to look into your diet, because it is no longer it means that you have gained some extra weight, and it is there, it's not going. It is no longer the pregnancy that is keeping it there. So you need to do something. But generally, within the first 6 weeks, it reduces significantly, and then it slows down gradually as it goes. There another question I missed. The first one was
the Mimbo Palava in Cameroon.
The alcohol. Alcohol is a problem, and the problem with alcohol is excessive drinking. In all guidelines about alcohol, they talk about moderation, and that is about moderation. But the problem with drinking alcohol is that you easily become addicted to it, and then moderating it is not easy. And drinking the number of the limited amount that is given. Alcohol is quite something that the guidelines vary between countries. There is no consistency of the safe alcohol limit. I look at it, the UK is different and the US is different about the safe limit. But the message out there is that don't drink excessive, and don't drink binge drinking. We drink, even if you drink the amount of alcohol that is given per week, but if you drink it excessively within 1 hour and drink large amount of it, is binge drinking, it will harm you. It can contribute to all these, the cluster of metabolic syndrome disease we are talking about, it, diabetes, high blood pressure, and all that. It contributes to it if you drink alcohol excessively high within a very short time, or you are drinking high for quite more than the recommended amount.
Wow, that was also impactful. Thank you so much, Dr. Eugene. I just want to make a final round with the co-moderators. If you just have a few seconds to just how your thoughts on this session before we close. Je vois que Christelle est dans la maison. Christelle, tu es avec nous?
Oui, bonsoir Brian, bonsoir Dr. Eugene. Merci beaucoup pour cette belle présentation. Désolée de prendre la session en cours pour des raisons d'Internet. C'était très intéressant, au moins la partie que j'ai pu suivre. Et merci infiniment pour les échanges. À toi, Brian.
Merci beaucoup, Christelle. Louisa?
Thank you so much, Dr. Kongnyuy, for leading this conversation. It was really interesting, and you can see how everybody in the town hall is on fire. If we had like the whole day, I'm sure people will still have questions going forward. I really just want to thank you for taking out time to share this with us.
Thank you, merci. Alison, please.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you so much, Dr. Kongnyuy. It was an amazing session. I was literally just taking down notes the whole time. And I'm going to try personally to implement some of the lessons that you've shared with us today as you went through your own journey. And, hopefully I would be as determined as you were. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, plantains is just one of those things that we just can't do without. It's just breaking my heart when you mentioned plantains as one of the high carb food, but thank you for sharing your journey with us, and I truly appreciate you.
Thanks. Teresia?
I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to Dr. Kongnyuy. You're a good example of a servant leader. You're a very good example of a servant leader. You've done it yourself. You know how to lead people on how to do it. So thank you so much. We're going to follow your example. After this, I'm going to try all other diets to see if I can get there. Thank you so much, and see you in the parking lot.
Thank you. I just want to pass it over to Elvis. Please, Elvis, if you can help us give a summary of the session before we pass it over to our chair to officially close the session.
Thank you very much, Brian, for excellent moderation. If there is one thing we are going to take away from this session, is that the way to reverse type 2 diabetes is that you have to lose some weight. Because diabetes is part of a cluster of disease called metabolic disease, it therefore means that we have to deal with this monster called fat. Because when there is so much fat circulating in the body, the system tends to release cytokines to fight this fat. But when they don't succeed because we keep eating the fat, so a combination of these free fatty acids and the cytokines then cause the metabolic disease. When the pancreas keeps secreting insulin now to fight the excessive sugar in circulation, the pancreas itself gets destroyed, the cells get destroyed because too much of something is a disaster. If you want to reverse type 2 diabetes, you need to reduce your weight. What is the single most important thing we need to tell our patients? It is that you need to lose some weight. BMI has been the calculation. Yes, we tend to massage our ego by saying, oh, this calculation was not logical. These experiments were done in the East and the West. But Dr. Kongnyuy says, this calculation is logical. If you are overweight, you will have diabetes. If your BMI is above 26, it's not good. Even if they say 26 is a good level, bringing it below 23 is the best because it can help reverse type 2 diabetes. It has happened for him. So what is the normal weight? Normal weight is not enough. Though you can reduce from 26 to 24 and still feel within the comfort zone, if you are already at risk of diabetes type 2, he says, 23 and below can reverse your situation. Now the question is, how can you keep people motivated to be at this kind of a weight, considering how difficult it is? Now you have diabetes. If you tell your patient that now you have diabetes, if you drop your to 23 and below, you will reverse your diabetes. That knowledge and information alone is motivating to the patient to change habit, because the pain of diabetes alone, it's not something anybody will want to experience. Talking about exercise, Dr. Kongnyuy says, exercise contributes enormously to weight loss, but just about 20% of your effort to reverse diabetes. So it is complementary in your fight to help reverse diabetes, but exercise alone is not enough. When you eat more than your body requires, it is stored as glycogen, and it's more where your body has to convert it to fat when it gets more than a certain quantity, like 600 grams. For you to lose weight through exercise is very intensive. So diet seems to be the easier course to take. Dr. Kongnyuy also made us to understand that intermittent fasting could help you lose weight. Intermittent fasting just means taking off some part of your 3-meal diet and saying, I'm not going to eat lunch, supper, or maybe breakfast. Your diet should be based on healthy habit, not just calculations of carbs alone, because it's even very difficult to calculate carbs based on our diet in Cameroon. It's easy for some people in America, Europe, and UK. Some people may be experiencing epigenetics, weight loss, or weight gain due to their epigenetics. For example, some of us who starved so much when we were young, our system has trained the system to store a little bit of carbohydrate that we eat so it can help us during rainy days. Now, when money surprises you and you get rich, your system has not changed. The memory cells are still there. So what happens? Everything you eat gets stored, you get sick. We heard that from Dr. Kongnyuy. So when we went to the question and answer sessions, questions came up. Which meal then is okay to skip when you say that intermittent fasting can help us reverse also diabetes or reduce our weight? The question Kongnyuy told us is, any meal that will make you lose weight, if you skip it, is okay. If for you it's breakfast that works, it's okay. If for me it is lunch that works, it's okay. If for Mono it is supper or dinner, then it's fine. Another question, somebody lost 20 kilograms in a midst to reverse his diabetic situation, and the doctor was scared that this could rather lead to hypoglycemia. And Dr. Kongnyuy says, weight loss alone is not enough to cause you to get into a hypoglycemic state unless you become underweight, which is another problem on its own. To say the least, our diet is inherited from our ancestors. This is quoting Eugene. But our ancestors had a secret. They exercise more. So if we say, oh, we will eat fufu corn, jama and everything because our ancestors did, remember, they did more exercise than we stay in our offices and eat the same diet. So if we have to maintain our diet, then we need to change our exercise and also make sure we can burn those fats. At the end of the day, we had so many interesting questions and answers. But one thing I can say in my summary as a takeaway is that we have learned that if you want to reverse type 2 diabetes, you have to lose some weight. And if you want to stay healthy, you have to stay within the prescribed BMI, which is 26. But best if you want to reverse the diabetes type 2 situation, be below 23, and you will gain enormous experience, just like Dr. Kongnyuy did. Thank you very much, Brian. This is what I was able to gather. I might have lost a lot of things, but I think there was so much for one person to gather.
Wow, that was so amazing. That was so comprehensive, everything. Thank you so much. I just want to hand it over to Dr. Foma, our chair, for his last remarks and to officially close the town hall. Dr. Foma.
Thank you, Brian. And I just want to thank Dr. Kongnyuy for his availability and his time to share his personal experience. In the town hall, we've had several formats of presentation. This was special and really special in the sense that you were bold enough to share your personal experience and your journey. And I think in science, everything starts with an observation, which you make. Then you may experiment it if you have the courage to do so. And you did several experiments by yourself. Then you go up to the point of seeing if this can be generalizable to the general public and what is going to be the takeaway message. And the Lancet article actually confirmed your observations that you were having at the time. And I think this is a lesson for us all. This topic has not settled. And it leads to another debate, which is more important. Is it the diet or the exercise, which you saw came up in our discussions that we had? And I just want to say thank you for letting us know this, even as those who are practicing nurse practitioners, physicians, those who are scientists, those who are doing research, clinical trials. In the future, they may have to answer this question and bring it to the forelight to decide what really works for these patients and trying to use known medicalized methods in order to help reverse this disease. And as you said, there are several other things that really prove that the theory of what you're saying really works. There's data out there that shows that losing weight itself reverses diabetes, because there is surgical data that has shown all those who have had pediatric surgery, there was some form of improvement in their state of diabetes after the surgery. Others became cured, even more than 50% of them in data that we have there showing that without exercise itself became cured of their diabetes in itself. So that data exists. So I just want to thank you and then thank all the moderators. I don't know exactly how you guys do this every time, every week. And you guys are here motivating us to come here. And I want to tell the general town hall that this town hall belongs to you all. You are free at any time. If you have a topic that you're interested in and you think you can present a topic for us, anything that you feel can change the way we do run healthcare in Africa, the way we run it in Cameroon, if we can learn from you, if you're in the diaspora, if you're in Cameroon and you have something we can learn from, and it's a way to bring the diasporans close to those who are back home in Cameroon for us to collaborate and change things. Change things in nursing, change things in laboratory science, change things in the way we carry research, change things in the way we do engineering, even adapting engineering to healthcare, different programs that can actually change the way healthcare is run in Cameroon. I think that's our goal. And you are all welcomed, and the platform is going to provide you a forum where we can talk about these things, and then others can later on lead to change. So thank you all, and it's always a pleasure. I'm very humbled to be part of this. I know you guys always say chairman, but I'm humbled to be part of this, and I have equal stakes in this like all of you do. So thank you all, and please keep coming and let's talk about healthcare.
Thank you so much, Chair. I think on that note, the town hall would be official. Just know that we have a parking lot where everything will be out, not recorded, so we can stay on and maybe network with one another and get to know one another and probably connect on different platforms.